Wrestling is one of the oldest sports known to mankind, and in its purest elements appears to be a simple concept. Two men walk onto the mat, and one walks off of it victorious. One would think this leaves little gray area for dispute. However, as history shows, mankind is far from simple, and even in wrestling, we have found ways to inject controversy, whether on or off the mat. From matches that would change the rulebook forever, to coaches being banned from all competition for stripping on the mat. This is part one of the most controversial moments in wrestling. Wrestling takes a lot out of someone to do, and is definitely an emotional sport. But this first story is an emotional roller coaster and possibly one of the most bizarre turn of events to happen in Olympic wrestling history. At the 2016 Olympics in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, the bronze medal match at 65 kilograms in men's freestyle was taking place between Mongolia's Mandaktaran Ganzoria and Uzbekistan's Ikhtior Navrazov. In the closing minute, Ganzoria had managed to get ahead at a score of 7-6. With the final seconds winding down, Ganzoria would begin celebrating while the match was still going and evading his opponent's offense while he celebrated. Time would run out though, and Ganzoria and his coaches would begin to really let it fly, going absolutely nuts on the mat in a moment of victory for their country. However, while they were going berserk, the judges penalized Ganzoria for fleeing the hold or refusing to engage his opponent. Uzbekistan's Navrazov would then be awarded 1 point, making the score 7-7. He would actually win based on criteria. Realizing what just happened, Navrazov and his coaches would proceed to go wild themselves. The Mongolian coaches would obviously challenge this call by the referee, and it would be sent to the judges panel. It would appear reality was setting in for Ganzoria as he went into further despair while awaiting the call. The atmosphere on the mat was tense, and when the judges would rule that the call stands and Uzbekistan wins, one of the Mongolian coaches would immediately rip off his shirt and shoes in anger while in front of the judges panel, and the crowd would immediately go into a roar at this spectacle. At first it looked like the other Mongolian coach would attempt to calm his shirtless colleague, but recognizing the positive crowd reaction, decided to up the ante and proceeded to hype up the audience before ripping off his shirt too. At this point the wrestlers were ready to call it good, and exchanging good jobs they started to walk off the mat when you can see Ganzoria look over at his coaches in utter confusion as one of his coaches is now stripped down to only his underwear in protest. The Mongolian coaches stood in their skivvies before the judges, begging and refusing to leave until something was done about this injustice, even offering their clothes to the judges. After this scene had been dragged out long enough, the judges would confirm this decision again and point out that Mongolia had actually lost their challenge, so Uzbekistan would receive another point, now making the score 8-7 and proving this bareback protest pointless. Eventually the crowd would turn on them as well, and the coaches would be removed by Olympic officials. Not only had their country of Mongolia lost an Olympic medal, but these coaches would receive a 3-year ban from international competition, and Mongolia's national federation would be fined their equivalent of $50,000. This next head-scratcher took place on American soil and almost prevented an American wrestler from winning a world medal that year before he even made the United States World Team. In 2015, the World Team Trials were set to take place in Madison, Wisconsin. At the 70-kilogram weight class, Nick Marable would wait for his opponent in the finals, as he had won the US Open months earlier, earning him a bye to the finals of the World Team Trials, where he would face the winner of the Challenge Tournament held before a best-of-3 finals at the Trials. Nick Marable was considered the guy at 70 kilograms for the US, having been the first person to beat the legendary Jordan Burroughs on the senior circuit and being a returning World Team member at the 70-kilogram weight class from the year before. However, come the day of weigh-ins for the World Team Trials, rumors were swirling that Marable was having trouble getting down to weight and would probably not make the weigh-ins on time. Come weigh-in time, as speculated, Marable was nowhere to be seen, and it was soon revealed that he was out with an undisclosed injury. The brackets would be redrawn with the Challenge Tournament finalists facing off instead in the best-of-3 finals for a World Team spot. Two-time All-American James Green of Nebraska, fresh out of college that year, would win the trials and it seemed would be on his way to the World Championships for the US. However, this was not yet the case. Details would begin to come out on what exactly happened to Marable on the day of weigh-ins, and according to multiple sources, while cutting weight, he would fall while running on the treadmill, concussing Marable and making him unable to compete at the trials. With this information, Marable's team demanded an appeal on the basis of injury exemption, and that he should get to wrestle Green for the world team spot on a later date. Marable had even obtained a doctor's note endorsing that he was, in fact, concussed that day. There is a ton of speculation to the authenticity of Marable's concussion claim. As it is widely known, 70 kilograms was a massive cut for him, coming down from the 74 kilogram weight class he had previously been at. While most people that day were cutting weight in the same area, Marable was not there and was only with his team when the incident took place. After losing the initial appeal with USA Wrestling, Marable would take it up the ladder to the US Olympic Committee, where he would eventually be granted an arbitration hearing. Ultimately, some way, somehow, from this arbitration hearing, the US Olympic Committee would decide to allow a special wrestle-off between Marable and Green for the world team spot that would be held at Fargo Nationals alongside the high school national championships. Many felt this was an injustice to Green, who had followed all USA Wrestling guidelines and procedures to fairly earn his world team spot, while the details of Marable's weight-cutting incident were too murky for most to feel certain about. However, both would show up and make weight in Fargo, North Dakota, and their best-of-3 series would commence. Green would wrestle this series almost like he had something to prove, and would find that a third match was not necessary, winning the first match 4-0 and the second match 2-1. James Green finally knew with certainty he was a US World Team member. After a long-winded and frustrating journey, James Green would earn himself and his country a bronze medal at that year's World Championships in Las Vegas. For this controversy, we're going to the college circuit, and it's one you more than likely have heard of before, as it was one of the most blatant robberies in college wrestling to date. It was 2015 at the NCAA Wrestling Championships, and in the quarterfinals at 157 pounds, Ryan Real Buto of Cornell and Ian Miller of Kent State were facing off with a berth to the semifinals and All-American status on the line. With 28 seconds left in the final period, Miller would lead 8-5 while in the neutral position, when Real Buto would execute a takedown to make the score 8-7, and would quickly cut Miller, giving him an escape point to now make it 9-7. Real Buto would score another takedown, tying it at 9-9, and the final seconds of regulation would come to an end. Ian Miller had accumulated over a minute of riding time though, and he would be awarded 1 point as well, making him the winner at a score of 10-9. But the thing was, he wasn't the winner. At the end of regulation, with the riding time point added, the score would show 9-9 on the scoreboard, sending the match into sudden victory. What had happened was that in the last 30 seconds, after his first takedown, Real Buto would cut Miller in order to quickly get another takedown to tie it up. It's tough to tell from the footage, but due to either a weak hand signal from the ref or just being completely missed by the scoring table, Miller never was scored 1 point for his escape after being cut by Real Buto. So after Real Buto scored his second takedown, this made the score 9-8 in favor of Real Buto, and Ian Miller's riding time point would make it tied at 9-9 instead of the 10-9 victory Miller had earned. Sudden victory would begin, and 15 seconds into it, Real Buto would score a takedown, making him the winner. While there's definitely some initial confusion and buzz going on, it appeared no one really understood exactly what had happened to cause this outcome. In the video, you can tell there's a brief pause before the sudden victory starts due to the Kent State staff approaching the scoring table and seeing what the hell's going on. After the match, Kent State head coach Jim Andressi said, "I knew the score was wrong. I went up to the head table, the referee said it was right, and 2 officials sat me down and started overtime." In another quote, he stated, "To be honest with you, I thought the score was wrong, but I wasn't 100% sure. It didn't seem right," further proving the initial difficulty in pinpointing where the error occurred for all witnessing. After the match, Kent State requested the tournament committee to review the match, and pretty soon everyone had realized what had caused this error, creating an uproar on social media with free Ian Miller hashtags all over the place. This would prompt the NCAA to put out an official statement addressing the matter and stating their decision on their review. The NCAA Division I Wrestling Committee met to discuss the scoring error in the match between Ryan Real Buto and Ian Miller, and our determination was that there is a protocol in place for coaches to challenge errors in match via the coach's challenge. Kent State had challenges remaining and did not raise the challenge flag to declare an error in the match. Therefore, the resulting Cornell victory stands. The NCAA was admitting to their mistake, but would not be reversing the result of the match. Real Buto would go on to make the finals, placing second, and thankfully Ian Miller would still All-American, placing fifth that tournament. Still, this turn of events left many in the wrestling community shook, And with a lack of faith in the NCAA, many still had questions. Why were the officials so quick to dismiss the Kent State coaching staff and begin sudden victory? How was the score table able to add 2 takedowns in a row without an escape in between and not think something was off? And how was this allowed to happen on college wrestling's biggest stage? Due to this situation, before starting the next year's season, the NCAA would clarify that all match disputes must be resolved during the match, before the wrestlers leave the mat or before the score sheet leaves the scoring table. Let's stay on the topic of NCAA tournament robberies and tell the story of Josh Heil, a Campbell wrestler who in the second round of the 2021 NCAAs would have a victory stolen from him courtesy of the table workers. Facing off against the 4th-seeded Boo Llewellyn, the two would go on to sudden victory after a tightly contested regulation. The first sudden victory would end still at a score of 4-4, so it would continue in the tiebreakers, which consists of 2 30-second periods where each wrestler gets a choice of top or bottom and attempts to score from there. Heil would choose bottom for the tiebreaker, which would prove fruitful for him as he would hit a reversal on Llewellyn, giving him the lead by 2 points. Now in the required second tiebreaker, Llewellyn would choose bottom to start. Within 5 seconds, Llewellyn would escape for 1 point. It would now need a takedown in order to still win. Llewellyn and Heil would go into a wild scramble, which would end with them going out of bounds with 7 seconds still left in the match. After walking back to center to restart action, Llewellyn would shoot on Heil multiple times in an attempt to get his needed takedown, but Heil would evade his offense, eating away most of the remaining seconds before going out of bounds again. However, it was immediately apparent to everyone that at the last restart, the table workers never started the clock once the ref's whistle blew, as 7 seconds still remained on the board. Heil and the Campbell wrestling staff questioned this right away, and the referee can even be heard debating with the scoring table how to address the mistake.
I didn't see it, guys. I'm sorry. That was 7 seconds. I'm aware, but that was still 7 seconds. You gotta run it off.
Campbell would throw their challenge brick after there was an attempt to resume the action at 7 seconds again, but they would quickly be refuted and handed their brick back. And while I can't speak for them, I'm assuming the Campbell staff and Heil probably thought something along the lines of, whatever, there's only 7 seconds left, just don't get taken down. But as Murphy's Law states, what can go wrong will go wrong. And when action resumed, Llewellyn would go into a flurry again, this time securing a takedown before the clock hit 0. Now, after taking a loss due to the table workers' negligence, rage and confusion began to set in amongst all. It seemed a recourse should be in order to right this wrong, as it was easily determined what had happened, but the refs would confirm the final results stand. However, this didn't stop the Campbell staff from staying on the mat to continue going to bat for the wrestler. This was smoke the NCAA clearly didn't want, and an occurrence they were not ready to handle. Many wondered why the video review couldn't help them determine how much time should have elapsed during the first restart, as it really wasn't that hard to do. The commentators even pulling out their own stopwatches to determine it live on air.
I've got my stopwatch pulled up. We're going to take a look at this and see how much time should have come off. So they look at the replay, they go at it. Okay, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6.97 is what I've got.
Ultimately, Campbell would be forced to accept their defeat, and the NCAA would quickly find their loophole to fall back on. Per the NCAA's official statement, the integrated time and scoring system and a view of the official clock on the video review system are the only allowable timing or scoring devices to be used for video review. Since the clock did not start on the mat, it also did not start in the video review systems. There is no rule in the NCAA wrestling rules book that allows for an additional stopwatch or other timing device to determine how much time should have run off the clock. So due to somehow never running into this situation before, the NCAA didn't have a rule that thoroughly addressed this kind of matter, ending Heil's championship run in a heartbreaking twist. As you can expect, the internet did its thing and collectively erupted into anger, except for Daniel Cormier.
And I'm going, boo for boo. Let's go.
This would prompt another rule change by the NCAA for the next season, stating, if video review is not available or the integrated system is not operable, the referee will consult with the second referee and the timer at the score table to determine the correct amount of time remaining. For our final story, we're going to the Olympic Games. While the main controversy happened during the 2008 Olympics, it would all start 4 years earlier at the 2004 Olympics in Athens, Greece. In the finals of the Greco-Roman 84-kilogram weight class, Sweden's Ara Abrahamian was wrestling Russia's Alex Mishin for gold. Abrahamian, an accomplished wrestler from Sweden, was planning on retiring from the sport after securing gold at that summer's Olympics, and it seemed was well on his way to doing just that. However, due to a controversial call, Abrahamian would end up dropping that match, making Mission that year's Olympic champion. According to many reports, the Russian leader was seen Matt's side making hand signals to the referees during moments of debate in the match. Nonetheless, Sweden would accept this loss and move on accordingly. Ara Abrahamian would not be deterred, and with the setback, decided to not hang up his wrestling shoes yet, and would give the next Olympic cycle a shot. Fast forward 4 years later, and Abrahamian would not only make the Olympic team, but would once again be in the Olympic semifinals of the 84 kilogram weight class. Ara would wrestle like a man on a mission, and at the end of regulation would avoid being turned by Italy and awarded 1 point to win. However, by now we know better, and this was obviously not the case. After it was over, the 1 point awarded to Abrahamian would be awarded instead to Italy's Minguzzi, on the basis of Ara's hand had gone out of bounds into the blue on the map at the end of regulation, which normally would not be a cause for a wrestler to be penalized. Italy's Minguzzi would now win the match instead. Team Sweden would explode at this call, with Ara charging the judges' table and berating them while they laughed in his face. After 8 years of trial and tribulation, Ara Abrahamian would twice be denied Olympic gold by a controversial call. At the medal ceremony, after being presented his bronze medal, Abrahamian would walk into the middle of the mat and ditch his Olympic medal at the center in an act of protest. The medal ceremony is held in high regard by the International Olympic Committee, and after interrupting it with this display, the IOC would come down swiftly on Abrahamian. He would not only be disqualified from that year's Olympics, which clearly didn't matter to him, but would also receive a lifetime ban from the Olympics. Abrahamian was quoted saying, "I don't care about the medal, I only wanted gold." If that last story seemed watered down, it's because it was. We'll be coming out soon with the full video on what happened to Ara Abrahamian that will go into much greater detail and give you the full scope of the underbelly of the Olympic Games and the dark details that happen behind the scenes. Thanks for watching. There's plenty more instances we could cover. So if you enjoyed this content, let us know in the comments what we should cover next.